welcome to our November episode of Women's Public Leadership Network's podcast series, Tips from the Trail, where we explore the path to political office from the decision to run to Election Day. I'm your host, Larissa Martinez, founder and president of WPLN, a national nonpartisan nonprofit organization working to educate, organize, and inspire center and right-leaning women to seek public office at every level across the U.S. and be effective leaders. Joining us today is Betsy Ankney, a political strategist with over 15 years of experience in Republican campaigns. Most recently, she served as campaign manager for Nikki Haley's 2024 presidential campaign, raising $80 million and establishing Haley as the strongest challenger to Donald Trump. Betsy has also managed successful statewide campaigns, including Bruce Rauner for governor in Illinois and Ron Johnson for Senate in Wisconsin, earning Campaign Manager of the Year in 2016. Betsy, it's so amazing to have you with us today. Thank you so much for taking time. I feel like your life is really hectic right now. This is, we're gearing up for midterm election season, but that does not mean that it hasn't already started. So I just appreciate you taking time to join us and to kick off with us on this November.
Of course. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me. You know, as we were chatting earlier, yes, things are hectic, but my life is a lot less hectic than it's been over the past couple of years. So, it feels easy breezy compared to what things have been like.
Yeah, it's amazing how that travel really does impact your life a lot more than you think it's going to. So, yeah, but I appreciate you making time for us today. And so I thought with that, what we could kick off with is just kind of your why. It's something that we talk about with a lot of our listeners, the women in our space, no matter if you're running for office or not. It's so important to get clear on your why you're doing anything, right? Whether it be running for office or advocating for a specific issue, or even if you're just, looking to move up or around in your job, to know why you're doing something, right? So I would be curious what your why is, why you got involved in politics, why you decided to go the campaign route, because it's rare for women to be in the political space, especially at the high level that you're at.
Yeah. So it's funny. I'm from Toledo, Ohio. Not from a political family or anything like that, but I, just sort of was interested in it. Like in high school, I was always more of like, a history English girl than math and science. I kind of loved poli-sci. When I went to college, I majored in political science, which looking back, probably wouldn't have done, to be honest. And just sort of knew that I wanted to get an internship in DC after my sophomore year of college and applied a bunch of places. Ended up getting an internship at the Republican National Committee through our good friend, Tori McGuire, who is now a good friend of mine, but started as my intern coordinator.
Oh my gosh. Small world. It's a small world.
I know. And so ended up being the only intern assigned to the convention in St. Paul, Minnesota. And they basically offered me a job. The CEO of the convention at the time was Maria Sino. The vice president was Mel Raines. And they were like, why don't you just take a semester off of college and come move to St. Paul, Minnesota and work for us? And so I did and had a fantastic time, learned a lot. Basically showed up like 2 weeks late to my senior year of college and just like couldn't wait to get out. And so I went, like I said, I'm from Ohio. I, took time off that semester, went and knocked on doors in the 2008 election for McCain in Ohio. And really, as they say, like, I just caught the bug. I was like, this is what I want to do. Sort of never looked back. Graduated from college, went back to the RNC and bounced around a lot of campaigns from there. And, it's just, I just really love it. I love the campaign side of things. There was always kind of a point early on in my career where I was like, maybe I should work on the Hill, or maybe I should, do something more kind of policy oriented, if you will. But I just love the rough and tumble of campaigns. I'm pretty competitive. I like winning. And it's just, sometimes it's brutal. It can be really brutal, but I love it. And so I just keep coming back for more.
Yeah. And I think that's the key. You have to love it because it is a lot. There's a lot of sacrifices that come in on the political side. And for those that are listening, we talk a lot about how there's kind of these lanes in the political space or in the this public sphere where you have kind of the political, we like to say political hats, but we will not call you one of those. But we also have like the policy lane, you have the communications lane, you have the fundraising lane, the private sector, you have kind of these different lanes that people tend to stay in. But I think, and it doesn't mean you can't cross, but it's just hard, especially if you're used to the fast paced competitive nature of the political space and the partisanness of it. In a lot of cases, it's hard to shift to the official or hard to shift into this other one of the other lanes. So I appreciate that you love it, you know it, you know that that's where that's what you're good at, and that you've kind of stayed and really excelled in it. So kind of to that point though, about it being such a high pressure job, how do you kind of manage your time, the intensity, the travel? I know you're not traveling as much now, but for decades you have. And so, how do you make sure that you're also, have a personal life?
It's very hard. It is very hard. I sort of feel like, on the tail end of the presidential race, like now I'm sort of like, all right, I should focus on my personal life for the first time in 15 years. But it is hard to maintain that balance. And I think it is hard to kind of stay even keeled and not drive yourself crazy. And I think everyone handles stress differently. I think for me, I am someone who, like, I thrive when I'm busy. I like sort of having that pressure. I feel like I'm more organized. I stay more on task, but I think everyone's really different. So for me, it's a matter of like having structure and a schedule, having an organized calendar, like staying on top of everything. And again, like everyone handles stress differently. I'm someone who I feel like I'm pretty even keeled most of the time. I don't get too like emotional or angry or sort of blow up about things, but my stress manifests physically for me. So on like different campaigns, throughout my career, like I've had stress rashes, I've had I've had nosebleeds, like I have tension in my shoulders, like all of those things. So again, everyone's different. I sort of know that about myself and have to just like take a beat, make sure that I eat a vegetable and get some sleep and touch grass and all of that. But yeah, it can be very tough. And the balance with your personal life is certainly difficult.
Yeah. I remember being on a campaign once where I ate so much McDonald's that I like had to start really like thinking through how, like, what I could eat if that was the only thing that was available on the road that didn't feel like terrible. Like you start to pay attention to like, well, they give you apples with a Happy Meal, and it's also portion control, and like maybe don't have a soda, like all the things. And then there are times where, at least for me, my body like straight up rejected fast food. It was like I just could physically not have anything more like that was processed. So I'm sure there have been moments like that for you along.
No, definitely. And like, you're getting pizza and there's, like I feel like beer on a lot of campaigns, or like wine in my case, it's like you kind of gravitate towards those things, and then you realize this is probably making me feel worse.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Again, you have best intentions to prepare in advance and like meal prep, do all the things, right? But things just happen. So I appreciate that. So one of the things that I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about before we get into kind of the meat of like how you prepare for the final stretch of the election day and moving into this period. But, one of the things that I think is so amazing is that you, again, as at the top of your game, you also worked for a female candidate at the top of her game when it came to running for president with Nikki Haley, who I admire a great deal. And one of the things that I was kind of curious about, not just with that campaign, but just throughout your experience in your life with other women candidates, have you seen things that you feel like women candidates see alone, like that they are different expectations or different things that you've seen that they've had to experience that the males don't?
I think I would say female candidates face the same advantages and challenges that women in any industry do, right? I think that you do have to work a little bit harder. You have to do your homework. You have to, show up prepared. All things that I think we as women kind of, our inclination is like, I'm going to be ready for this meeting. I'm going to have my notes in order. I'm going to sort of come in knowing what I'm going to talk about. And so I do think that you're held to a little higher standard. And I think that women also hold themselves to a higher standard. And I think there's also always the question, especially in an age when people want a fighter, of, is this female candidate tough enough to win a primary, take a job done, whatever it is. I think there's always kind of that question. And so it's a matter of being able to show that you are tough enough, show that your candidate is tough enough. And I think that's also a lot of showing and not telling, right? I think it's pointing to the things that they've done in their past that demonstrates their ability and their strength. And I think that, you could have a female and a man with the same resumes and people just view them differently. And so I definitely think that you just have to approach it a little bit differently. But I also think that it's the same stuff that I think women really in any industry at the top of their field deal with. And it's not anything to complain about. It's not anything to gripe about. Like, it's just different and you know it going in and you handle it accordingly. And at the end of the day, people are going to support the candidate who they think is going to get the job done. And it's your job to prove that you are the woman to do it.
Yeah. Now, the flip side is, do you feel like you see some of the same kind of experience that you're talking about, being a female that is in the campaign world, that is navigating these spaces that are very heavily male dominated, and both sides of the aisle have this.
Yeah.
Especially when you get to the level you're at, there's just not too many women that are in this high level position running statewide national campaigns.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fun thing is on the Republican side, I feel like this cycle really shook things up. I mean, you had Susie Wiles running the Trump campaign, now chief of staff in the White House. Like, you did have a lot of women in leadership positions on these Republican campaigns, which I think is fantastic. But you're right, that historically has not been the case as much. And I think, particularly when I was younger and starting out in my career, I feel like that was more of a hurdle. I had one, I was probably like 27, maybe 28. And I was, applying to manage a statewide campaign. And I was told with a straight face, I just really think that we need like a 35-year-old man who's run multiple statewide races to do this. And I was like, okay, well, I'll be here just doing the job. So let me know. I definitely think that there's some of that. And I do think that women often are not necessarily not elevated into those positions, but I think, not steered towards management, not steered towards data and polling, not steered towards, even being a media consultant. I feel like it's a lot of, and I will say early on in my career, someone was like, well, why don't you go fundraise?
I was waiting for you to say that.
Yeah. And,
or be a scheduler.
It's a great career, like nothing wrong with that. But I feel like that's often kind of where young women are kind of steered. And so, I would say, especially early in my career, I definitely faced some of that. I think now I've kind of, there's still a little bit of that, but, you kind of overcome it. But again, I think it's a matter of, you just have to prove yourself. I think people are going to be a little bit more skeptical going in, can she do the job? Is the candidate really going to listen to you? Are you really going to be able to sort of wrangle these consultants? And I think, you just have to have the confidence that you are able to do it and do your homework and show up and just get the job done. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it's about. And if you are performing and if you are doing the work and getting the job done, I think people are going to respect you for it, whether you're a female manager or a male manager.
Again, trying to encourage those listening that if you're looking to start a career in public or this political space, to please do, because we need more. I have a lot of women candidates that want women campaign managers now. And it's been interesting to kind of see how many are out there, which is not that many at some of these other levels. So hopefully get more in the pipeline.
And it's kind of funny because I think that, managing a campaign it's essentially managing time, money, and people. Like, there's a lot that goes into it, but at its core function, that's what you are doing. You are starting a small business, you are building it up, you are running it efficiently, and you are bankrupting it at the exact right time. Like, that is what a campaign is at its most basic level.
Yeah.
And, there are a lot of people involved in a campaign, especially in the, kind of consultant world, who, are handling the strategic side of things. And when you are the campaign manager, of course, you're involved in that, but your job is to keep the trains running on time. Your job is to manage the art of triage. And who is really good at that? Women. We are good at multitasking. We are good at prioritizing. We are good at just kind of figuring out okay, I need to do these 17 things today in this order to move the ball forward. And, that's really what you need to do on campaigns. And I think, women are fantastic at that. Not all women, but a lot of women.
Yeah. Well, and also being in a high pressure situation with a timeline and managing people that handle stress differently, right? Because it's not just you as the top having to manage your own stress, but you're also managing the team, which also comes with a whole nother element and layer of additional considerations and factors.
No, I mean, that's such a good point. And I think that, you are the one who everyone is going to look to. Like, when you walk into the morning meeting on the campaign or on the morning call or whatever it is, everyone on the team is going to look to you. Like, was there a shitty poll that came out the night before? Did you just have some bad numbers? Did a story just pop? Whatever it is, everyone's going to look to you and see all right, is Larissa freaking out? Is she good? Are we okay here? Yep. And if you are good and if you maintain a sense of calm and purpose and all right, this is what happened, wasn't great. This is how we're dealing with it. This is the plan moving forward. Everyone's going to be able to function accordingly. And same thing with the candidate. If you as the manager are sort of losing your mind and melting down, what does that do to your candidate? And at the end of the day, they're the ones who have to go out there and, do the stump speech and meet with people and do press and all of those things. So it's maintaining that sense of composure is so important. Whether you're, on a local race and you've got a team of 3 volunteers, or you're on a presidential with a team of 100 plus, you've got to be that glue that holds everything together.
Well, and managing up and managing down, which is an art. So, so I appreciate that. Well, I'm going to switch a little bit here and move towards advice to women that are running either currently or as they're planning their campaigns ahead of time. So the final stretch, and you had just mentioned that, making sure that you are spending down, but also that everything kind of hits at the right time, right? I mean, looking at the timeline, making sure that momentum builds and hits in enough time to get people to the polls, get people, mailing in their ballots, whatever it may be that you're looking to do. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen people make? And what are some ways to avoid it as you move into kind of the final push, the final stretch?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's exactly what you said. And I think that so much of, so many things on campaigns are the unknown, the unexpected. And so it's a matter of controlling what you can control. And when ballots are dropping, roughly how many people are voting early and absentee, where your early vote locations are, all of that going into it. And so I think building out, a master calendar and having an understanding of the cadence of voting and planning accordingly with your budget is huge. And I think I'm a huge budget person. I am a huge believer in Like your budget is your plan.
Yeah.
And so, thinking through all of this early on and planning accordingly is so important. And understanding like things are going to happen, things are going to shift. You're not going to meet a fundraising goal here. You're going to have to respond to this hit here. But at the end of the day, understanding what your plan is, what your budget is, what your cadence of messaging and spending is, and then adjusting as you go, like that's what it's all about. And I think that, so many people don't put in that legwork early. And then they're like, oh, like this is happening, or like, oh, and so all of these things are coming, and it's just a matter of planning it and getting ahead of it and executing it. And every campaign is different in terms of the mediums that you use, the messaging, the size of the budget, all of those things. But in every single campaign, whether your budget is $10,000 or $100 million, those basic dates, those basic numbers, those basic counts, and you've got to map that against your budget and execute.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I actually really liked about the campaign world is that there is an end time for the most part, unless you ever run for something, but you have the dates, to your point, the structure, the skeleton of the plan. And I'm just going to repeat what you said for those again, that the budget is the plan. I say that because it's always so hard. It's so hard to create a budget, but it really does matter. So in terms of going into the election day itself, do you have any non-negotiables that you kind of either have routine, ritual, something kind of like as a checklist for you personally, and then also for the candidate?
So I feel like this is like evolved a little bit for me, but I have a lot of nervous energy on election day, of course. But I also am not someone who is like obsessing about everything all the time on election day, because for the most part, aside from some final calls and things like that you're doing and monitoring what's going on and having a plan in place for all of that, like you're not influencing the outcome of the election. Like so much of it is like your own curiosity and manic nervous energy. And there's nothing worse than being, on the ground on election day and having everyone being like, so what are you hearing? Like, how do you feel? Yeah. And it's like, people are voting. Turnout's high in some places and low in others. So I'm like I would not say that I am calm on election day, because I am not, but I also just sort of am like at peace with things a little bit. And again, you have your plan in place for final GOTV efforts. You have your plan in place on basic, election day operations, poll watchers, the legal team, all of those things. You just have to have all of that in place. And then you've got to be able to troubleshoot, but you also sort of have to let it happen. It is a terrible and glorious time. Yeah.
So if you're a candidate, is there anything that you suggest that a candidate do during this time specifically? Because to your point, the influence piece is kind of already done, but there's always media looking to find the candidate. Right. Are you out? Are you not out? Where are you?
So it depends on what you're doing. Strategically, are you going to have your candidate vote absentee or early or in person on election day? You kind of have to determine that based on what your goals are and what the race looks like. But, having your candidate, it all depends on what the candidate wants to do, right? If your candidate is I need to be busy all day long, otherwise I'm going to go insane. Then it's all right, we're going to have you go to these polling locations, and then you're going to go on a run, and then you're going to dig a hole and fill it up. You can do all of those things. Yeah. Having candidates do press on election day, I think is great. But it's also, again, it's what is going to make them feel the most at ease? Much more so for the candidate than for the manager or the team. This is the end of a, really arduous marathon that they've been engaged in, and they're in the final stretch. So it's do they want to spend time with their family? Do they want to take a nap? Do they want to go on a run? I typically, depending on that, have a couple things in the morning, have a press pop in the morning for the morning news. And then it's what do they want to do? Going to make them most at peace.
And not texting you / calling.
I mean, like that's
constantly.
But that's okay. Like that's, you know, that's what you sign up for.
Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned the family, because that's the other piece of this, that, you know, a lot of the women that we have in our program that are running, I mean, they may have consultants and they may have campaign managers here and there, but for those that are running their own thing, what do you think is helpful on the management of your family, your close friends, the people that are, again, with the nervous energy with you? Like, is it good to give them a task? Is it you kind of avoid them? I mean, it may depend, but I'm just curious how you've seen that play out over the course of your career when it comes to this time. And it may not be just election day, but just in general, like the energy going into it, election day itself.
Right. You know. I mean, I really think that it's so dependent. I mean, like this is such a cop-out answer, but truly, like every race is different, every candidate is different. And so, you know, what works for one candidate in a race might not work for another. And also, like, you kind of figure it out as you go, though, right? Like in most instances, like the candidate's spouse, like having them with them is like a great thing. Having their kids with them is a great thing. You know, maybe there's some like wild friend who's always like the nervous Nelly who's going to be in their ear being like, oh my God, did you see this? I mean, first of all, election day Twitter, election day X is like the worst thing ever. Like it's, there's so many hot takes. There's so much nonsense. Everyone thinks that they're an expert. It's terrible. But again, like you're always going to have, you know, like we all know, like there's the friend who's like, oh my gosh, did you see this? Or I heard boopity boop. Those people are generally best to like, you know, find a task for them. Right.
Yeah.
But again, like it just depends on the dynamics. And I think that you've just got to, as the manager or the consultant or whatever, you've just got to sort of figure out what is the best situation for the candidate, for the race that we're in, for the venue that we have, for the dynamics that exist here to keep this as buttoned up and calm and professional as possible.
Yeah.
And frankly, a lot of times you just can't control it. Like, and you sort of have to be okay with it at that point because like there's going to be someone who's mad that they like can't get into, you know, the private room with the candidate or that they can't do X or, you know, there's always going to be stuff like that. And you just at that point have to be like, you know what, this is going to be okay.
Yes, very, very true. One thing that I did want to talk a little bit about is around safety. One of the things that we're hearing obviously a lot over the course of the past couple of years, but you know, we saw some incidents this summer and kind of throughout this year when it comes to candidate safety at these big events, right? These big rallies to get out the vote, or these election night parties, or kind of these bigger things. And obviously, the presidential level, you have security, and you actually have like paid staff. But for those that are, you know, hoping to kind of manage and provide access, but also you want to maintain that approachability, but you also want to make sure the boundaries are in place. Do you have any tips or kind of tricks or things that you've seen work well for that?
So it's really interesting. I mean, that's definitely an issue as we have tragically seen. And it is hard when you know, like you said, obviously on a bigger race, you're going to have security. You're going to have some of those things that you just don't have on a smaller race. But you still want to make sure that everyone at your events feels safe and that your candidate feels safe and that your team feels safe. And I do think, you know, I think we've talked about this. So I am on the board of the campaign school at Yale, which is a bipartisan campaign school for women. And this kept coming up as something that, you know, people wanted to sort of have some basic guidance. And a lot of these people are running, you know, in local races where there isn't a big budget, there isn't any sort of security. And so we had this fantastic guy who helped us with security on the Haley campaign, come and speak to the group. And he just kind of walked through some basic things like having an understanding of where exits are, like walking through and understanding kind of the parameters of the venue, having a plan in place. Like if something happens, are we on private property? Can we kick this person out? Like just walking through all of those things in advance and having an understanding of what you're dealing with, I think is key. I think as with so many things, especially when you're down resources, like planning is going to be your best friend, and just having an understanding of what the dynamics look like. If there have been troublesome people in the past at events, making sure that your volunteers know who they are and there's a plan to, so it's never going to be perfect. And I think it gets smaller on smaller races. But I think just having an awareness going into it is really critical. And I would also always recommend, partnering with local law enforcement, making sure that they know that an event's happening, getting their advice on it, I think is also always helpful.
Would you recommend having a point person kind of be responsible day of for some of this?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that goes to like, what's the plan, right? Like who is in charge of this? Is there a point person from the venue? Is there a point person from the team? Like, what are your contingencies if something happens? And again, it's, you obviously hope that nothing awful like that happens, but, more and more we are seeing that. And, like obviously on the presidential was a little different, but, we started to get a lot of like protesters at the end, and I had 2 kids on staff get like punched. Like they were trying to sort of, like stuff happens, and it's awful. And, again, control what you can control and sort of plan ahead.
Yeah. As we look to post-election day, so that immediate like week after, don't worry, we're not going to go crazy. Like, let's talk about your whole timeline of all things. But for the week after, what do you find is kind of the or any tips or tricks to kind of breaking down, closing up, kind of checking some boxes, as especially managing the team side of things? Obviously, if the candidate, depending on if they win or lose, there's some additional things that have to happen, but just in terms of kind of closing down, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So I think this is where, especially having a good treasurer and compliance team is so critical. I feel like that's something that is so often overlooked on campaigns. Whether it's someone being like, I'm going to have my cousin do it, or, there's some,
which we don't recommend.
Right. Yeah. So having someone who really knows their stuff and knows all the ins and outs and is on top of it is so critical. That's number 1. Number 2, I always like, if there's a way to plan into your budget, to pay staff a little bit longer. Not always possible. But I always like to try, kind of depending on how things go, to, keep people around ideally through the end of the year, just to give everyone a little buffer. Again, often not possible, but lovely when you can do it. I think it's such a balance, right? Because whether you win or lose, like everyone is exhausted. Like you've reached the finish line, assuming there's no recount or any like, sort of funny business still happening. You've reached the finish line and everyone's just sort of like dead. I do like to give like a little bit of time. But I think having people, come in like the afternoon of the next day and just sort of circling the wagons and saying, all right, this is sort of what needs to happen now, I think is important. But I think the biggest thing really is the financial piece that can get mucked up. And I think being really tight on where all of your outstanding invoices are, like any outstanding payments, like having that process tight from the beginning, again, I think is something that people often overlook. And it can bite you in the end when you have random invoices from vendors coming in that some, field staffer asked for that didn't go through a normal process because you didn't communicate a normal process. Like that's, I think, where things get really out of hand. And so the financial piece is really kind of the biggest thing, and just making sure that whether you win or lose, you do it with grace.
Yeah.
and that the team knows that you are going to do it with grace.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so important. Okay, well, we're moving into the fun questions now. Not that those weren't fun, but
I was going to say,
these are more of the like give us your advice stuff. So the first thing I wanted to ask you is, do you have any recommendations on any newsletters or books or podcasts or things that you would suggest that people watch or listen to or read that could help them if they're thinking about running for office?
I highly recommend this show called Veep.
See, why is that the thing that anyone that's been in politics for like, that is the most realistic show in both a sad and funny way. I get PTSD watching it.
Alarmingly realistic.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's a good question. And I will say, I've been asked that before, and I don't have anything that I particularly recommend. Like they're like, first of all, like the book Bad Boy, which is about Lee Atwater, is fantastic. It's very, like, I love that. Do recommend it. But generally speaking, like, I'm a firm believer that this is not something that can be taught. Like, this is not something that you can study. That's why, when I said at the beginning, like, in retrospect, I probably wouldn't have studied political science. You cannot be taught in a classroom how to run a campaign. Like, I think we do a good job with different schools of things of like trying, but even the best ones of those are simulations because you don't really know what you're dealing with until you're in it. And so I'm sure that there are some fantastic books and podcasts that are really interesting and illuminating. But it's truly one of those things where, like, you don't learn how to run a campaign in a book. You don't learn about it in a classroom. Like, you have to be on the ground, talking with people, dealing with fires, dealing with candidates, like talking to vote. Like, you have to sort of do it to learn.
Yeah.
So that's not a great answer, but be Bad Boy and just get on a campaign and get your hands dirty.
Yeah, I think those are great. Those are great. So thank you. I appreciate that. I was actually, so I teach a master's course on campaign components for USF, and the person that taught the class before me had like 15 books. It was crazy. So I bought them all because I wanted to see what they said and what they looked like. But to your point, it's so hard because things shift so much. Technology shifts, tactics shifts, and then just the realities that you have to face going in, that like, I was like, I don't really have any that I need you guys to read because it's really hard. It's more helpful for them to watch like some YouTube on different candidate things that are good or bad, those kinds of stuff. But I think it's a tough question. So I was curious if you had, but I'm going to put Bad Boy on my list though to read.
It's really good.
It's really good. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good one. And yeah, I feel like so many of those books too, it's like, and then you look up the author and you're like, oh, like, what campaigns did they run? Like, what's their experience? And it's like, they don't have any. Like, they have studied campaigns.
Yes.
And that is just not the same. Like, you can learn a lot from studying other campaigns, but I just am such a firm believer that you got to be in it.
Yep. Okay. So then, advice or like one tip. You've given us a ton of advice and a ton of tips, but if you had one specific kind of thing to say to someone that was interested in either getting into politics as an operative or on the candidate side, what would that be?
I mean, I think on the operative side, I would say, again, like, just get your hands dirty. Like, the number one thing on a campaign is hard work and just an ability to kind of pick up balls and rise to the occasion. Like, I was a fellow at Harvard last fall and was speaking to some of the kids there, and they were asking about how to get involved in campaigns and everything. And I was like, look, like, I will hire the kid who is excited to be there, who shows up and is like, what can I do? I'm going to go get coffee. Can I get donuts for the volunteers? Can I knock on doors? Like, how can I help? Like, I will take that kid every day of the week over the person with like the political science degree from Harvard who like wants to help with strategy. Like, it is about getting your hands dirty and doing the work and working your way up. And if you do those jobs well, you will be given more responsibility. I will never forget when I was working on the convention, like I was given I got to staff Mary Madeline, who was coming, to do a bunch of press. And I was the 21-year-old assistant to the CEO, and all these comm staffers, everyone wanted to do it. And Maria was like, no, Betsy, you get to do it because you go and fill up the cars with gas every day, and you do it with a smile and ask how else you can be helpful. So like, you get to do the fun thing now.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, from an operative standpoint, definitely just like putting in the work, like nothing is above you, like just having a good attitude is going to, like, making yourself invaluable to the people around you on the team is huge, especially like coming up into it.
Yeah.
From a candidate standpoint, I mean, look, if someone's looking to run for office today, like my biggest advice is to really be involved in your community. Like, to have I feel like people always want to be like, well, I'm gonna go to law school, and then I'm gonna get this job in politics, and then I'm gonna get that job in politics. And the best candidates are the ones who aren't necessarily involved in politics. The best candidates are the ones who are involved and embedded in their community and are in local business or doing whatever it is they're doing. And they see a problem and they see an opening and they're like, that's what I want to fix.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to do. Those are the best candidates, like, because you're in it for the right reasons and you're not in it just from like, I'm going to do these steps so that I can run for political office. I get that that's often what happens, but I think that if you approach it from I want to make a difference in my community, I want to build the best relationships, get involved in these charities, get involved in what's happening on the ground, understand the issues, know the people, you're going to be a better candidate.
Yeah. It goes back to your why.
Yeah. Like, I would just approach it from a sort of non-political standpoint, because the rest is going to come. And if you're the person who's like, I've worked on the Hill and I interned in this office and I like worked on all of these different political things, and now I'm like climbing the ladder. Again, that's where a lot of our politicians are today. I just don't happen to think that those make the best candidates. And I think that we see in elections and primaries that most people seem to feel the same way.
Yeah. Thank you. You know what that is? It's called honesty. Yes. Right to the point, which I appreciate. Okay. Final question. And it's probably, it's one that we ask everybody, and you're probably going to laugh when I tell you what it is, but, can you tell us if there's one thing that you have to have in your bag, no matter what you're doing, where you're going, just like something, because we do a series called Lead in Style, and it's all about making sure that everybody has what they need.
Yeah.
Kind of always. So I'd love to know what you have.
So I am, like, I like to call them like an adult chapstick, right? Like a tinted lip gloss, like a tinted balm. I have one right here. It's the Fresh Sugar lip treatment.
I do too. I feel like I have 15 different colors.
Yeah. See?
But yeah.
Like, I love, first of all, I feel like my lips are always chapped, number one. And number two, I feel like if you put on like a little pop of color on your lips, like, you immediately feel a little more pulled together. Yeah. So I would say that's like the number one thing that I always have in like a bag or a pocket, and usually too many of them, but it's good to have options.
Yes. I was actually just having that problem today. In fact, I was like, why do I have so many in my bag? Like, this is bananas. But yes, always looking, always trying. But I like fresh too. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. You've been so generous with your time and with your advice and experience. So I just really appreciate it. We appreciate you being in the positions you're in, and that you're continuing to show what it looks like to operate at the highest level of politics as a woman. So thank you so much for all you do. And yeah, we're just so grateful to you.
Thank you, Larissa. So good to see you guys. Thanks for having me on. Good luck out there.
Thank you, Betsy, for taking the time to share these valuable insights with our audience and for your support of WPLN. WPLN is a national nonprofit working to educate, organize, and inspire center-right women to seek public office at every level across the U.S. and be effective leaders. We're excited to announce that our national summit is coming to Philadelphia in June 2026. Early bird registration is now open, and we'd love to see you there. You can find the registration link in the podcast description below. Thank you for joining us for Tips from the Trail. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please take a moment to rate and review the show. Your support helps us reach more aspiring women leaders across the U.S. And if you're interested in donating, the link is also below. Thank you so much and happy trails.